Bonnie.
I'm Sarah.
And let's dive in. Yeah, Macy is, I don't know, did she ever come back from her honeymoon? Maybe she's still out there somewhere.
Is she still honeymooning?
I have no idea. Good for her if she is.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Really?
Yeah.
I never did a honeymoon.
You didn't?
No. We were
Oh.
just in Vegas and then we just,
Oh, you're already in a destination.
and then, yeah, we did stay at like a nice hotel and just kind of staycationed, but that, I don't know, that didn't really count.
Did you do like one of those Vegas marriages where it's like
Mm-mm.
married by Elvis or
No,
something
we
like
actually got married in a church. Yep. And then had a reception. And my parents did, though. My mom and my stepdad, they got married in the little white chapel. It wasn't an Elvis guy, but it was like
that? Was it a drive-through?
No.
They have that, right?
Yeah.
I need to go to Vegas. I want to. That's the kind of stuff I want to see on my Vegas trip.
I want to go to a wedding like that. I want to have a friend that does like a fun, silly themed wedding, or some kind of Elvis like guy I'm marrying.
I've never been invited to a themed wedding, and now I'm mad about it.
We need to find somebody.
We need to. Somebody needs to have a themed wedding.
We can talk them into having some weird wedding.
Yeah, like like magic or something like superheroes. I mean, there's so many directions you can go.
Even if it's just so like off the wall and like dorky and weird, I think it'd just be entertaining.
I went with very classy for my wedding,
which
surprised me. I surprised myself because I always thought it'd be like everyone wears black and I'm gonna wear a mini skirt and suck it all. But then when it actually came down to it, yeah, when it came down to it, it was very traditional.
Oh yeah, it would be nice to have like black wedding dress and then everyone else has to wear white.
Yeah.
Like the one I found in that store. It was so cool.
That was dark and lovely for sure.
That's my next wedding dress.
Well, I've been saving our 200th episode till Macy can be here. So we'll call this 199 and a half.
Okay. Because don't we have to do a movie for that too?
I don't think people are really interested in those. Sadly, I watch our like downloads and
we're way more interested.
Yeah, those seem low interest.
Oh, okay.
But we can still do it amongst ourselves.
I want to watch the movie Gaslighting.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies I want to see.
Okay.
Are you ready for a story?
I am so ready.
Okay. Do you know like about, kids' fairy tales and all that?
I do know a lot of those children's stories and fairy tales are dark and weird and twisted. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you one.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about the truth behind Hansel and Grethel.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I feel like I've heard about that at some point, but I don't remember.
You know the story?
Yeah, where they go into the woods and
I could tell a story.
Okay.
It's a story time.
Okay.
So this is a Brothers Grimm fairy tale. Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, they wrote fairy tales. They actually wrote all like the famous ones: Snow White, Rapunzel, Rumpelstiltskin, Hansel and Gretel, like so many. So this came out in 1812. That's a long time ago.
That's so weird. So can I just end
Yes,
already?
Please interrupt.
So I went with Chelsea today, Chelsea Durgan and her friend to Coeur d'Alene, and she said it was an escape room, but it was outdoors and it wasn't an escape room. It was like this, almost like this outdoor virtual adventure where you're on your phone and you have to go around and check in with these different characters like around the town, but it's on the phone. So when you get to a certain spot, like the character pops up.
Oh, like Pokemon Go.
Kind of like that. And then there's like this little thing you read and then you have to solve these riddles to get to the next thing. And we actually got bored after.
It's like riddles.
We got kind of bored after a while and then we ended up at this place called Craft. It was this little bar restaurant place that has turtle races. Turtle racing on Friday nights at 10 p.m.
Okay, that seems like, what do they call it when the two words don't go together?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because turtles
oxymoron.
Oxymoron.
Yeah.
Is turtle racing an oxymoron?
I think that's why it sounds like it's supposed to be
I hope
fun.
they're kind to the turtles.
I mean,
I hope there's no turtle cruelty involved.
I wonder if you bring your own turtle or they provide turtles.
I have so many questions. Did you see the turtle racing?
No, Fridays at 10. So I think we might need to go and check it out and do a field trip. Okay. Anyways, that's a side note. We ended up at this turtle racing place with no turtles today because we got bored of this virtual adventure thing.
I understand
That's
that.
not an escape room. But anyways, the whole point I brought it up is because all the characters were fairy tale characters. So it was Snow White, Rumpelstiltskin, Rapunzel. So like all the people you were just saying, which is kind of weird that I like.
That is very collective unconscious connection.
It is, yeah. Oh, and people were so into it that they were dressed up. It was the Beauty and the Beast theme, and so there would be like.
What did you wear?
We didn't dress
We're
up.
just talking about a themed event. That was your chance.
I didn't know you were supposed to. There was a whole bunch of people out there doing this thing, and they were all into it.
You'd be a good Snow White because you have the dark hair and the white skin.
I wanted to do that for Halloween, maybe this year.
Do it.
Okay. All right, back to the story.
Please jump in anytime.
With this.
This is not supposed to be a monologue.
Okay. But we need to go turtle racing. You bet on the turtle. You bet.
See, I'm a little concerned this is going to be like greyhound racing, and there's going to be like, issues with animal health, especially with it being over there.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know if they have their own turtles that they bring in. Where do they keep the turtles on their downtime?
Do they even have downtime, or is it like a turtle sweatshop? Are they made to race 24/7?
I don't know.
We
can ask more questions maybe before we support this event. Okay.
Well, yeah, let's just go and check it out.
All right, and we can ask some more questions over there.
And if we have to alert PETA to it, then we will.
Okay, so we're gonna do a spy
mission. Even though I hate PETA because of what they did to my son when he was little.
Oh no, that's a whole other story.
I haven't told you about that.
Mm-mm.
When he was in preschool, they had a old, sweet, fat pet rabbit in their classroom.
Mm-hmm.
It's preschoolers.
Yeah.
Little. He's like 3.
Yeah.
And they loved it,
That's
and
cute.
they called that rabbit Sugar Bunny.
Uh-huh.
PETA broke into his preschool, stole the rabbit, left the cage filled with PETA flyers.
Whoa.
And I hope if they let that bunny loose in the wild, that bunny was probably dead within an hour because it was old, fat, used to being fed. It's not going to outrun any coyotes. So I don't know. They should have just. And the children were traumatized. Like they were sobbing because of Sugar Bunny.
So taken care of. Like, why would you leave it there overnight?
Well, PETA, it's extreme, so you shouldn't be like having any animals like in servitude as your pet or whatever.
Oh, come on. That is awful. Yeah. So we don't like PETA.
That's why I don't like PETA, because they made Asher cry when he was little.
Who made the report? That's who I want to be mad at.
And how did they break in? I feel like it was an inside job. It had to have been.
You're right. Another teacher or something in there.
Mm-hmm.
Awful.
There was a whole spokesman article about it. I should try to find it and bring it in.
Poor Asher.
I know.
Oh, Sugar Bunny. Where did she go?
Sugar Bunny. Sugar Bunny. They're all so sad.
That is awful. That's very sad. All these little babies coming in the morning like, where's
Sugar Bunny? What are all these flyers in Sugar Bunny's cage?
I mean, come on, PETA. Don't you have better things to be doing?
Come on. Exactly.
Okay.
All right.
Back to the story.
All right. So here's the story, and please jump in whenever you want to.
Okay.
Okay. So I have the book, the fairy tale book. So this is like a super shortened version of the story, but a lot of like actual parts of the book. Near a great forest lived a poor woodcutter and his wife and his 2 children. So this is the stepmother situation.
All right. That's a big theme.
Over and over, the evil stepmother, right?
And so it's the Grimm. I want to know Grimm's background. Did they have a problem with a stepmother in their childhood?
We should do some research. We need a psychological profile done. We need a family tree, a genogram.
And is Grimm their actual last name, or was this some kind of like cool?
It's very cool though, isn't it?
Because if they're they made these fairy tales that are Grimm, and then their name's Grimm.
I mean, that's what it says in the book, but that could be a writer's name, a pseudonym. Mm-hmm. There was very little to eat. There was a great dearth in the land, and the man could not even gain the daily bread. So I had to look up dearth.
I know what it means. Dark.
No. DEARTH.
D. Oh.
Okay. It's not like Darth Vader.
That's why I knew that. Well, I thought
but maybe related, because Darth is like a scarcity.
You know what Darth Vader means?
Dark?
Dark.
Okay.
Father. Because, you know, like
does Vader mean father?
Vader means father.
What?
And so it was like a
fuck.
Yeah, and so that ends up being like Luke's father, or right?
Yeah. Luke, I am your father.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So I did not name Asher Lucas. I thought about it, but I already had Skylar. So I pictured their dad like yelling at them in the park saying, Luke, Sky, listen to me, I am your father. And I was like, no, too much.
That's too much. Yeah.
So he's Asher.
That would have been kind of cool though. I like the name Luke. Luke and Leia. That was both their father.
Those are good twinsy names.
Yeah.
So there was a great Darth in the land, Darth with an E.
Okay.
That means scarcity.
Okay.
And he was worried about how he would feed his children, but his wife had a solution. We will take the children early in the morning into the forest where it is thickest. We will make them a fire and we'll give them each a piece of bread. Then we will leave them alone. They will never find the way home again, and we shall be quit of them. So she just wanted to get rid of them.
More food for her.
More food for her. The man wasn't so sure about this plan. He was worried that wild animals would devour them, so he didn't think it would turn out well.
He wasn't sure about the plan.
He wasn't sure about
it. This is an absolutely bad plan.
But I think the wife was the decision maker in the family.
Sounds like it.
She ridiculed, calling him a fool. You fool! And said, then we will all 4 starve. You had better get the coffins ready. So he was pressured into it.
So you should have sent her out into the woods for making that suggestion.
No, good point.
You leave them.
I think this was the times, and we talked about this, where like kids weren't seen as precious yet. Like that came like more towards the Victorian times.
Okay.
So Little and Hansel and Gretel were awake and they overheard this conversation. Gretel was distressed and cried, but Hansel had a plan. He opened the back door and went outside. The moon was shining brightly on white flint stones that lay in the front of the house and glistened like pieces of silver. So he filled up the pockets of his coat as full as it would hold. So in the morning, the man and his wife gave their children a piece of bread each and took them out into the woods. Every now and then, Hansel sneakily dropped a flint along the road. So when they got to their destination, the children were told to lay down and rest. They're like, you're tired, go ahead and sleep while we cut wood. But when they awoke, it was nighttime. Parents were nowhere to be seen. And they would have been lost, but they were able to find their way home once the moon rose by following the path of the bright flint shining in the light. So they followed that home. So Hansel's smart. He like had a plan. He enacted it.
Hansel.
Yes, he executed it. Hansel. I mean, it's hard not to think about Zoolander when I think of Hansel.
Hans and Franz.
Well, you know Hansel and Zoolander. Owen Wilson.
Oh yeah, that was a really funny movie.
So the kids made it home. The wife is pissed, and the dad's like relieved, but she's like, we need to try this again, to abandon the children in the woods the next morning. So they're talking about it. Hansel and Gretel again were awake. They overheard the conversation. Hansel went again to go gather the flint outside, but when he tried, he found the wife had locked the door. So he was blocked from that plan. So Gretel's distressed. He's like, don't cry. He was working something out in his head. So again, the next morning, the children were given a piece of bread each and walked into the woods farther than they'd ever been. It was like woods they'd never seen before.
Deep in the woods.
Deep in the woods, the thick, dark woods. So along the way, Hansel, he had this piece of bread. So he's like sneaking and dropping little pieces along the path. So thinking maybe they'd be able to follow that trail back home.
I mean, that was a good last-ditch effort.
It really was. So again, when they got to their destination, the children were told, you're tired, rest. It's okay if you sleep. We'll build you a fire, relax, everything's cool. We're going to go chop some wood.
I have a plan.
What's your plan?
I would have just not fallen asleep and then waited till they were walking away and then just get up and kind of follow them back. But at the same time, they're just going to keep kicking you out again.
No, I like that plan.
Yeah.
That's good. Like pretend you're asleep.
Yeah, pretend you're asleep and then they're like, okay, let's go. But they're going to be like crunching through the woods and you're going to hear them farther away than what they can see. And you just kind of sneak
and follow.
Yeah.
And maybe coordinate your steps with theirs.
Yeah. And then I'd go into the village and I don't know what would happen from there. See, we can't survive in the wild. I don't know what to
do. Go to the city's the instinct.
Right.
So when they awoke, it was dark night. Parents are out of there. They waited until the moon rose so they'd be able to see the breadcrumbs. But the birds had came and carried them all away, darn it.
Dang it. Nice try, Hansel.
Nice try. It was a good effort. Mm-hmm. So Hansel and Gretel wandered and wandered, trying to find their way out of the woods, but they could not. And in fact, they found themselves deeper and deeper into the woods, not closer to home. By the third day, they were starved. About noon on that third day, they saw a pretty snow-white bird sitting on a bough and singing so sweetly that they stopped to listen. When the bird had finished singing, he spread his wings and flew before them, like in a way, like inviting them to follow. Mm. So they followed the bird until they came to a little house that was built of bread and roofed with cakes, and the windows were made of transparent sugar.
Wow.
Which I thought was like really early technology to make a window out of sugar. I've heard of them doing that like as stunt windows. Like if a stunt person's going to fly through the window, that would be made out of sugar. I didn't realize that was happening in such ancient times.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that either.
We should try to make a window out of sugar.
Let's do it.
So they're starving. They discuss it amongst themselves and start, tearing pieces off the house and eating it, the windows and the roof. And then they hear a voice, "Nibble, nibble like a mouse who is nibbling at my house." Then the door opened and an aged woman came out leaning upon a crutch. The children were frightened, but she took each by the hand and led them into the house. And so inside it was like warm and cozy. There was a good meal laid out waiting for them. There was milk and pancakes with sugar, apples and nuts.
Wow.
And, they're starving and desperate out in the woods, about to die. So they're like loving this. She showed them 2 little white beds and tucked them in. And they just thought, this is great. Mm-hmm. However, the old woman was a wicked witch who lay in wait for children. When they were inside her house, she killed them, cooked them, and ate them.
Okay. So in the not grim version, it was that she was trying to do that. Like she was trying to fatten them up so that she could
Yes, this is her history.
Oh, okay. So we're not done with the story yet. I thought that she cooked.
No, I was pausing to get your input.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, what the heck is going on here? Who is this lady?
Who is she?
What is happening?
So the witch's eyes were red and she couldn't see very far, but she had a keen scent like the beasts, and she could smell when human creatures were near. So she smelled them coming. So
this cannibal witch.
And I wonder, did she transform into the bird? Or was that like her familiar that she could send out on a job to lure them back? Yeah, the bird was working for her. The bird, was definitely
maybe her
in on it somehow.
Yeah.
The next morning, though, the kids grasp what was the situation, the seriousness of the situation.
Wait, how did they know at that point that this was?
Because the next morning she grasped Hansel and locked him in a stable outside, and then told Gretel her job was to cook for her brother to fatten him up for eating. So
she gave
it wasn't really a secret.
Yeah,
I know. So this went on for 4 weeks, and Hansel was tricking her by when she said, because remember she didn't have good eyesight. So she'd say, "Let me feel your finger to see how you're fattening up," and he would stick out a bone instead. Yeah, and she's like, so finally she's fed up. She's like, "I'm eating him no matter what, even if he's, bony."
Sick of eating candy and cake. She wants some meat.
She wants some human flesh. So she told Gretel to fetch water to boil and bake bread for the meal. So Gretel's like obviously distressed. She's like, "I don't want to be like a part of this. I don't want my brother to be eaten." So she's kind of like playing dumb, like, "I can't tell if the oven's hot enough." And so the witch is like, "You stupid girl, this is how." And so she like gets in the oven, and then Gretel shoves her in and locks the latch.
Good job, Gretel.
Yes. So she lets Hansel out of the stable, and then they like notice the witch has all these precious stones, so they grab those, and then they flee. And then some animals.
They burn. Did she turn the oven on? It doesn't say that.
It was already fiery.
Oh, okay.
So she just locked her in. So yes, she burns
okay.
up. Yeah, we can assume she burns up.
Okay.
That's a different witch.
It's a Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz, yes. So they make their way home eventually, and their father's overjoyed to see them.
I mean, I'm not too happy with this dad.
You know what? He's kind of a pushover. Yeah. He doesn't really stand up for his values.
That's, yeah.
The wife had died over these 2 days.
Oh my goodness.
So they were able to live, enjoy without her. They had these stones that they could cash in.
Get food now.
Get cashola. Yeah. So it was like a happily ever after sitch.
Oh, okay. Very nice.
So that's the original Hansel and Gretel story. So here's some of the truth behind it. There was a great flood and famine in 1314 in Europe. And this, you might think, like, what would cause a famine? Like, what would you think?
Like the rain wasn't coming and being able to water the crops, and so food wasn't growing.
That's what you'd think, like drought.
Drought, yes, thank you.
This was caused by too much rain.
Oh, okay. Blood.
So it rained almost constantly through the summer and fall of 1314, and then through most of 1315 and 1316. So this caused the crops to rot, and livestock drowned or starved. Like, this is a lot of rain.
Yeah.
So food stocks were depleted, and the price of food soared. People couldn't afford it. It was called the Great Famine of Europe. And over the next few years, it claimed 5% of the British population, and it was the same or even worse in mainland Europe. So this tale takes place like Germany-ish. So the shortage of crops like pushed the prices up to the point nobody could buy any of the necessities. And this isn't like the times we can like go to the store and get a loaf of bread or a Lunchable. You got to make all your stuff. Yeah. So if you can't get those basics, the wheat, the barley,
sugar,
the oats, the vegetables, you're screwed. So bread was super expensive. And because the grain had to be dried before it could be used, it was also like very poor quality because the grains were like damaged. And salt at that time was the only way to cure and preserve meat. They didn't have like fridges or freezers. So you couldn't get that, and you couldn't extract it through evaporation when it was in wet weather. So that price went up.
Wow.
They tried to control the prices, but the traders simply refused to sell their goods at the low prices.
That's so scary because it just makes me think back during COVID. And you go into the grocery store and see all the shelves cleared out. That was terrifying.
It was terrific. I went to Rosar's, no bread, the entire shelf.
The milk, when the milks were gone, I was I started getting really nervous. I'm like, okay, we're turning into an apocalyptic situation. We're all gonna be fighting each other for goods, and so it's such a scary feeling. So I can't imagine like what these
and this is for years.
Oh my god.
And this was like, at least they had skills like to make stuff. I mean, we were kind of like, I mean, I have such respect for people that are self-sufficient, kind of, because I am so not self-sufficient.
No, I need a garden. I want to grow my own things.
I would love to be, but it takes, I mean, it needs to be like a full-time job if you're really going to be self-sufficient. I mean, I ding around. I have tomato plants.
Yeah.
You know,
we'd be living off just tomatoes.
I'm like,
and we last a week.
I'm basically off the grid with my 3 tomato plants.
They'll last you like 2 days.
Yeah.
2 days and we're starving again.
Did you like make your own bread during the COVID?
I mean, I can make banana bread, so I probably did, but I wasn't like
I did it
doing
once.
it for like survival purpose. Not actual like bread, real bread.
I did one like, you know, the rustic, I guess, bread where it's like.
How did it come out? Was it? Do you have a bread machine maker thingy, or did you?
No, I was trying to just do it like, okay, if this is the end of times, can I make bread? Just so I had that confidence
that was a good
that we would survive. So I did it once. It was good, but then I was able to find bread at the store again. I'm like, okay, at least I know I can do it.
Do you remember how to do it now, or do you just have the recipe written down somewhere?
I mean, I should write it down because I looked it up on my phone.
Right.
Like we need to like, that's another thing too, is I think we're over reliant on cloud storage or this or that. Like we should have hard copies of some things for survival.
Definitely.
Like recipes.
Yes.
Or like just basic instructions on how to live.
Like books.
I mean, you know, human IQ for the first time ever is going down, not up. It's scary.
Wow.
And I 100% blame like phones and social media and just our over reliance on not having to retain anything in our head. Do you remember when you used to know everybody's phone number by heart?
Yeah. And now I know nobody's. Well, I know like a few people.
I don't even know my kids' phone numbers.
I know Nick's phone number. That's it.
It's really sad.
Max? No.
Like if I was stranded without my phone, how would I call anybody?
Right.
It's terrible.
You should memorize somebody's.
Let's memorize people's phone numbers.
Okay.
But then you have to trust that they're going to answer.
Max is really easy too. It's like a bunch of zeros. And I still don't know it.
But I know my old, when I used to have a landline back in the day, I still memorize that one.
338-8302. That was my home number.
I still have my old.
16.
Isn't that interesting?
Yep.
We're getting stupid.
We are. That's awful.
I know. Let's do something about it. Okay, back to the famine.
Read more.
Back to the Great Famine. So by 1316, there were rumors of cannibalism. People were starving. They were desperate. They were begging, stealing, murdering for what little food that people could find. I've thankfully never been to that point of like doing anything to eat. But I've, you know, through this podcast, scared enough, you know, about like, I think it gets to that point that you'll do anything. You'll eat anything.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like
because
Yellow Jackets.
Yeah.
Really end up having that.
Just like that. You have that survival drive. Like we have that built into us that we want to live. So here's the link to Hansel and Gretel. Parents who could no longer feed their families actually did abandon their children to fend for themselves. Oh. They really would take them out to the woods and leave them there.
So sad.
Yeah. I just think it's really interesting.
It is.
I mean, I guess there's no birth control, so you just had like so many children, you would just give up some. Like I can't relate or imagine. But it was different times.
And the awful part is we're gonna take them out to the woods because we don't want to watch them starve either. Because it's like they could just
kill them.
That's.
I almost feel like that would be better,
yeah,
in a way, and at least you're involved in the outcome.
Right, you're taking away their suffering.
You're taking away their suffering, and I feel like there's more accountability. Mm-hmm. Like you're just leaving them out there, and it's like,
yeah, now they're either gonna
have a horrible end. Like they're probably not gonna live.
Yeah, wild animals are gonna get them, or they might make it.
Like there's so many sad movies where parents intentionally kill their children for like good reasons. Color Purple, Titanic. You know, to save their children from suffering.
Wait, tell me that one with Titanic.
Titanic, I think they were on the lower decks, and the mom killed her two young children, like knew they weren't getting out of there.
I don't remember that part.
And then in Color Purple, didn't Oprah kill the daughter to prevent like having to suffer living in slavery?
Do you remember Andrea Yates' story where she like drowned her kids in the bathtub?
Is that one, or is that the one that drove him into the river in the car?
I think Andrea Yates.
There's a couple, like
similar thing.
But was she trying to save them from something?
She thought that if she killed them, then she was saving their souls from like going to hell or something. So so in her mind, she was like, well, if I kill them, then they will have eternal life. So she thought she was doing them a favor, doing something good for their souls.
You got convicted?
Yeah, I'm sure. I think so.
Well, see, that's interesting, because if that's her religious belief.
Isn't that interesting?
It is interesting.
I think she had a person with schizophrenia or something. And
I have issues with delusional disorder, because it's like, who's to judge, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that'll be a future topic. Let's talk about that.
There's a lot of these.
There's a lot of this, yeah.
Happens.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I've thought like, okay, what if we know nuclear war has happened and we're all gonna die within the hours? Like, what would I do with my kids? You know?
I mean,
would it be better to put them out of suffering, the unknown, and all that, or would it be better to just see what happens?
I think I'd take the risk of just see what happened. I don't know.
I know it's tricky, right?
Because you want to do the thing that's going to cause least amount of suffering, but without knowing.
Right?
Thing's going to be, yeah.
Yeah, I know. And like, don't spies carry like a suicide pill with them? Oh. In case they get
into a bad situation.
They can't get out
of. Or like a torture situation where they're trying to get like information out of them.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's just the movies.
That's a good plan.
That might not be real.
They should do that if they don't do that.
Or like, I wonder if like astronauts have that. Oh. Like an opt-out pill.
That's a really good question.
Like if they end up like, sorry, we're not gonna be able to bring you home and you're kind of fucked out there. I wonder. See that I love that inside information.
I need to Google this.
Do
astronauts have an opt-out pill?
I don't know anybody that's an astronaut that can tell me inside information, and they may sign a serious NDA and like
not be able to disclose. Did you just come up with that question right now?
Yeah,
you've thought about this before, because that's a great.
No,
question.
I haven't thought about that particular such that just came up.
Or then, like in the submarine situation.
Yeah, like all of that. Like, what would it be, like a cyanide pill or something?
Yeah.
Or am I too stuck in 60s spy stories? Where it's like in their necklace or in their ring.
They should have that.
There should be something.
Well, you can continue. I'll back in.
It's just, I thought it was interesting that this was caused by too much rain, because I think right now, like the focus is on, oh, it's getting too hot. But there's actually a lot of danger that can come from the opposite of things getting too cold.
Really heard of that, just like flooding, ruining.
Yeah, so this was caused by what was called a little ice age in that period, where things got colder, and so there were cooler, wetter summers and earlier autumn storms, and this didn't bode well for agriculture. which needs like those hot, dry summers.
So it says that it's an urban legend that American astronauts could carry suicide pills in case they are unable to return to Earth. It is possible this myth was started by the movie Contact, in a scene where the main character is given a suicide pill in case he cannot get back to Earth.
Maybe that's where it got to my consciousness.
But I mean, I feel like that would be probably, the government wouldn't be able, like NASA wouldn't be able to provide it.
Tell you also.
It would be like, you might want to go find something to keep in your pocket, but we're
down
not
on
giving
Fifth Avenue.
We're not gonna,
there may or may not be a guy.
Go find Naomi's house over in the alley, and you can get a whole bunch of things
between the two garages. You can get anything you need.
But they're not gonna like provide it.
But also, would they disclose that to the public? I don't know.
Interesting. I feel like they should be provided that.
I think so too. I mean, what's the alternative? You just lay out there until you starve to death and die? Either
starve to death, or it's like suffocate, and all of that's awful.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Take something that's gonna make you go to sleep.
Death with dignity. Let's talk about this wicked witch bullshit.
Let's do it.
So, if you ask most people to think of a witch, what image do you think would come to mind?
Like an older lady with a hat, black hat, pointy nose, like evil looking.
Evil, like, ugly. Yeah. So this has been ingrained into us, that image of a witch. And there's a lot of thoughts on why that is. There's some thoughts that there could be some anti-Semitism at play. But this is a common villain in stories. The evil, ugly old woman often lives alone, practices dark magic,
has cats.
There could be a lot of cats, eats or steals children. But this really perpetuates like a harmful stereotype that beauty is good and ugly is scary.
Oh yeah.
So
and age,
like, and age is bad and to be feared,
and to not be married. You have to be
right.
Like, being alone.
Like
you're up to something.
Let's suspect that person living alone. What are they doing? What's wrong with them?
Yeah, they're not conforming to society, so they must be evil.
Exactly. So these messages are ingrained in children. These are all children's tales.
Makes sense.
Think about how many stories. Snow White has the evil witch.
So many. Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz.
All the princess ones, like Sleeping Beauty.
Sleeping Beauty, does that have it?
Like all the.
Well, Rapunzel Rapunzel steals the baby. Well,
Sleeping Beauty
gets the baby in a trade.
Or is that the stepmother? No. That's.
Well, so there's evil stepmothers and.
The stepmothers usually are witches because they're like magic.
They're kind of both.
Yeah, they're both.
I think in Snow White it was both, right?
Right. But yeah, Wizard of Oz, those were just all actual witches.
Yeah.
And then, but Sleeping Beauty, I think that was a witch. Like she turned into a dragon at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's a lot.
What other ones? I'm sure there's so many.
But this, as being children's stories, that's the message that kids are getting at a very young age. And I felt like this might make you miss danger because you're looking the wrong way and trust people that are attractive who actually could be the most evil motherfuckers out there.
Yeah.
I mean, have you been following this Ruby Frankel thing?
No.
So it's like this blonde white chick had this channel where she gave parenting advice. She's now being on trial for like serious child abuse, like having her kids starved and like duct taped.
Oh my goodness.
And was an influencer giving parenting advice.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So I think we need to teach kids to like look more at who the person is and less on the appearances, right?
Don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, and then the whole stepmother thing. We need to look into the Grimm's history. Like, why are you hating on stepmothers so much?
We need to find out if there was something that went on.
Stepmothers can be great.
Yeah.
They're not always like in competition with their kids. Like Cinderella, I think that is the idea of, to me, of like the
That
worst
one's just
stepmother.
the stepmother. That one's not a witch. That was just the stepmother. Yeah.
But she was just like her own biological children. She was just invested in their good outcomes. And Cinderella, as not being the biological one, was like made to do all the chores and all of that.
No, I was just looking at more stories that have.
Yeah, what are they?
Well, it has a lot of new books with witches, but they're like young witches. I think they're making witches to be more like whimsy and powerful, and they can like do what they want.
Yeah. Well, I mean, modern witches are any of us that are just more like in tune to nature and, you know, look seeking power in maybe alternative ways.
Yeah, and that's like what like those witch trials that went wild out in Salem and over there, where I think it was just women who were you know, using like herbs and plants and stuff and cooking and healing and like
in touch with nature.
Yeah, they were like using stuff to like heal, and then they're like, oh, you're in there cooking up a brewing spells and potions and using it for evil
because they weren't conforming to society. They were mistrusted.
If they weren't like going to church or something like that,
or like, you know, married and
or not married.
Yeah, it's so rude.
It's so rude.
I hate it. What are your favorite witch movies?
That's why I was trying to think. I mean, there's so many, I'm sure. Oh, let's see. The Craft.
Craft is good.
I was thinking children's ones, which I couldn't think of anymore, but I'm sure there's a lot. But I like The Craft, and then there was this one, I forget, and this girl, she used to be able to freeze time when it was like back in the, I don't know, when I was younger, and this girl, she was like a witch and could freeze time.
I like the Three Witches of Eastwick.
Oh, with Jack
Nicholson. Yeah.
I loved that one.
I like that one.
And then what was the one that got really popular with like Shannon Doherty, and was it Charmed?
I never saw that one.
I didn't really get into it, but I know that was really popular. Oh, there was one with Sandra Bullock.
Oh my god, I love that
Practical Magic.
I haven't watched it for a long time. I don't know if it holds up, but
It's so good.
Loved that movie.
I watched it a long time ago, and then I
because they do the like midnight tequila, right?
Yeah, it was, and I think the whole point was they were trying to like get rid of some guy.
Let's watch it again. Let's see if it holds up.
We could do a review that watch.
No, watch. We could just put ourselves in a midnight margaritas. That's what it was, midnight margaritas. Okay. They would get up at midnight and like.
Let's do it. The month of October, we can definitely do a movie night.
Perfect.
And Macy can join if she ever comes back.
I know, like, where is she?
I don't know. I miss her.
I love that.
All right, let's do it. What other? I don't know any other witch ones though. I loved The Craft. I was really.
I'm trying to learn Spanish watching a Spanish show called The Witch right now on Netflix. I was trying to watch it without subtitles just to see if I could just learn Spanish through osmosis, but I just started watching it with the subtitles. I don't know what's better.
Bruja. That's a
Bruja. Is that good?
La Bruja. That's a witch in Spanish. Bruja. That's how you say witch in Spanish.
Okay. It's a good show. Yeah.
It's just called The Witch.
The Witch, yeah. It's a Spanish show.
Oh, okay.
Because I learn best with immersion. So I'm like, I'm just going to start watching like Spanish shows, listening to Spanish music. And I think that would be better than like doing like one of those lesson things.
Like the Rosetta Stone.
Well, I was doing Duolingo.
Oh. Okay.
But they shamed me. They're like, you are dropped out and you are not on a streak and you suck. And is this not working for you? And I'm like, you know what? Fuck you, Duolingo.
Not working for me when you're like putting me down.
Exactly. They shamed me. I'm like, I'm over you now.
That is awful.
Yeah.
They should be like, you put in an hour this week. Way to go. Keep it going. Like, encourage the people.
Well, they encourage you until you stop. If you miss 3 days, they start attacking you and it starts becoming negative, and it doesn't work for me. It doesn't motivate me.
No. And yeah, it makes you want to rebel. And
shame doesn't work for me as a motivator. No.
Well, I'll have to look up that one too.
All right, do it. All right, we got to come up with our until next time.
Oh my gosh.
Do you have something?
No. I always forget to think about it.
Well, I'm inspired by Hansel, so I'm gonna say until next time, always have that exit strategy. It's really done me well in a lot of tough situations.
Maybe look into I don't know, growing your own food in case of emergency. Learn how to bake bread.
Be a prepper.
Yes. Okay. Bye. And witches aren't always bad.
Oh, I think mostly good.
See, learn how to bake bread.
Be a prepper.
Yes. Okay. Bye. And witches aren't always bad.
Oh, I think mostly